You caught me mid-sip. Apologies. All right, so let's get this thing kicked off, right? Welcome back to another Late Night Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, but you know that already because you're here. But if you don't, there you go. Let's get all the pleasantries out of the way, right? This is that time where I take a break from what I'm doing, working on Texas independence, to come in here, fire up the camera, and answer your questions. And I am quite excited to be doing that tonight. It is a welcome reprieve from the grind, no doubt about that. And it's good to see so many of you in chat tonight. I'm really excited. And, well, I'll get to that here in a minute. I almost spoiled something. But let me tell you, if you're brand spanking new, how you ask questions, right? So if you're watching us on YouTube, you just go over in the chat, leave your question. How about chatting with some of the folks that are there? You guys, have a little banter back and forth. But while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can get notified anytime we go live or, when we post new videos. It's super cool. And while you're there, why don't you get a channel membership too? Right? That way you can get access to some exclusives. You get all of our new videos that drop. You get them early, all kinds of stuff, more than I can explain tonight. Just trust and believe. Go do it. And, of course, it helps us continue to generate content and spread the word about Texas independence. If you're watching on X, you can leave your question in the chat on the video itself. And while you're there, be sure to give our profile a follow. Be sure to re-share, repost. So much easier when it was called Twitter. I'm not going to lie. It was just easier, right? But do all the Twitter things, right, while you're there. If you're watching on Facebook, you can leave a comment under the video, and we'll see your question. Leave your question there in the comments. And be sure to like and share while you're there as well. And then, of course, that brings me to our folks that are watching on Rumble, right? So for weeks since we have been streaming on Rumble, I have lamented the fact that Rumble chat doesn't integrate with the software that we use. So if you're sending questions over there, we can't see them. Well, guess what? That got fixed today. So boom, shakalaka. Welcome to our Rumble viewers. Now you can enter the chat and pop your questions in there. The only thing that would make this cooler is if all you guys that were watching on different things could chat with one another, but that's not possible. So platform of choice, but most people gather up on YouTube in the chat. But if you're on Rumble, now you can send your question, and now I will see it. So welcome to all of you guys. Additionally, if you are not interested in any of those, you're like, man, I don't want to sign in. I don't want to chat. I don't want to do any of that. I got a question I want to ask, and I don't want people to see that it was me that asked it. Not to worry. That's why we have something that'll be down here at the bottom of your screen here in a second. It is an email address, coffeetalk@vtnm.org. That's coffeetalk@vtnm.org. And you can email your question in. And, of course, that email address is live all the time. So, like many people, if you have your question in the middle of the week and you want to get it answered on Coffee Talk, just drop it in there. And, you get in the queue and you get to jump ahead. So, as per usual, to quote one of my favorite YouTube cooking guys, as per usual, if you have a question, we're going to try our dead level best to get to all of them as best we can tonight. If not, sometimes, as happened recently, your question will get turned into a full-blown article and published on the Texian Partisan. So, it's cool. You get all kinds of ways to interact and ask your questions and things of that nature. But, again, a bit of a caveat. If it's one of the normal sort of Texit questions, I'm probably going to refer you over to texitnow.org. I have a tendency not to try to answer those same questions week after week after week after week. It gets boring for everybody who actually tunes in week after week. So I may direct you over there. So don't be offended. It's just trying to maximize everyone's time here and make it as useful for as many people as possible. So Before I tuck into questions, let me go ahead and, speaking of channel memberships, let me go ahead and give a big thank you to Sea Turtle. Thank you so much for becoming a YouTube channel member. And of course, to Thomas Gordon, thank you so much as well for becoming a YouTube channel member. You know, it's right there, easy peasy. You're on our YouTube channel. Like if you're watching the video, I think there's a button right there for it. Or if you just go to our actual channel page, there's a button that says join. You hit that, become a channel member, and it really helps us get the job done. So thank you guys so much. You guys hit it. I'm looking at the timestamps on this. You guys were on it before we even fired up tonight. You guys were like midday. So thank you guys so much for thinking about us and supporting the work that we do right here at the TNM. All right. So, folks, get your questions in on the chat. I am going to begin with email. So let's get over here and see what we got. Okay, so this question is from Dalton. This slid in right under the wire before, I guess, as we were wrapping up Coffee Talk last week. So talking about getting in early, right? But this is from Dalton. Dalton says, could you explain the situation with Marvin Nichols and eminent domain? I'm from Winsboro, Texas originally. We're being told we may lose our land to eminent domain. Which could you share your stance on? Thank you. Dalton, that is a great question. And I wish that I could spend, you know, I wish I had all the answers for you about what's going on with the Marvin Nichols Reservoir. We have been keeping up with it and the fight of the citizens up there. And it really gets down to, honestly, the big controversy as Texas continues to grow, and that is private property rights and especially water rights. As the cities continue to expand and grow, they're looking for additional water sources because there is what I would call, in the minds of a lot of developers, growth without consequence, right? They don't think about how these expansions are going to strain infrastructure and resources. And frankly, I look at it in a very similar way to why unrestricted illegal immigration is a bad thing. I mean, you could just take illegal immigration, say it's illegal, and say, okay, that's bad. But it's this unrestricted migration that is a massive problem. And one of the biggest issues that I think kind of goes out the window, you know, we talk a lot of people do, about the crime statistics and things of that nature, but they don't talk about strain on infrastructure. Well, we got people that are here absolutely legally that are engaged in unmitigated expansion of these cities, you know, and without thought of the consequence of not having the proper infrastructure to handle that sort of growth. And so what that in effect has is areas like Dallas Fort Worth, which is, you know, that's what this whole Marvin Nichols situation is really about. Dallas is, they're trying to, you know, reach their tentacles out into the rural areas to find additional water sources. And, you know, whether it's tapping into aquifers or trying to get, you know, agencies to eminent domain private property so they can build more lakes and reservoirs, it's going to be a big contentious issue. And so, you know, that being said, my understanding is from the people that I have spoken with about this, granted, this was not kind of we have not been in the mix on this, although in years past we'd have been definitely in the middle of it. You know, there is a legislative pushback on this whole Marvin Nichols reservoir situation. So the people up there in that area are right to be concerned that effectively you have got the government coming in, or a government agency coming in, wanting to utilize the power of eminent domain to effectively take private property, pay you whatever, right? They can't take it without money. It's called an unlawful taking, but, you know, pay you whatever for it, but just take it even if you don't want to sell it, and then essentially utilize it to store water so that it could be utilized perhaps by private companies. I mean, who knows? And so eminent domain is a massive problem. We have been promised eminent domain reform for years and years and years. It really never comes because it always seems to get subsumed by whatever the crisis of the day is. A little bit like the redirection that magicians use. Look over here, and then they're plucking something away from you over here. So, it is a situation, right? And so we are aware of it, and definitely because of your question, I think we're going to take a little bit harder look at it and see what we might be able to do to help out the property owners there. But thank you for your question. I'm sorry you guys are having to deal with that. Okay, let's see what we got over here. Let's go. Ooh, boy, the ratio. You guys have got so many email questions. Ooh, this is a bit of a research paper, folks. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm looking for the question, but I'm not really. I mean, I'm finding some. I'd like to know why our city tax dollars are going to a foreign country. I really have no idea. I don't know the city you're in. I don't know specifically what you're talking about. I really okay. I don't understand. I don't see I see a lot, but I don't see questions. So Tiffany, if you could perhaps make it a little more concise with a very pointed question about something that we can talk about here, I'll be more than happy to revisit. Okay. What in the world? Is Texas part of a federal theory? Oh, I recognize this language. This question is from a guy who thought he would send a 400-page bogus lawsuit to the T&M because we would not change our mission statement to accommodate his theories. So let me just go ahead and tell you, I won't call out the guy's name, but I'm going to go ahead and I mean, when I say try to, he literally tried to have paper served on us, right? I mean, like he went through it, some vexatious litigant nonsense, okay? To the point we had to pass it to an attorney and all that. So, he cost the organization money. He cost money from you. So I'm going to tell this guy, buddy, there's no you don't have a snowball's chance in hell that I'm going to ever answer your question. As a matter of fact, your little stunt and your crazy 400+ page diatribe earned you a lifetime ban from the Texas Nationalist movement. And if you continue, then it'll be fun because the next time we go to a lawyer, it'll be to get a restraining order against you and then have a judge issue an order saying that you have to get permission before you file lawsuits. So there's my warning to you, and that is the only and the final you will ever get. Do not mess with me, do not mess with our people, and do not mess with the Texas Nationalist movement. They're coming out of the woodwork tonight, folks. It's happening. It's happening. I can see it already. Let's find a good one. Here's one from Eric. Eric says, is there a collection of Texas independence music? Surely somewhere a collection has been created. Alternative is we each keep reinventing the wheel. I'm not sure what you mean by reinventing the wheel. This sounds more like a question of culture, right? And so I guess the question would be, what would you define as Texas independence music, right? I mean, Ireland had Irish rebel music, right? There was like literally a specific genre, and you had lots and lots of musicians and bands that made music that was known as Irish rebel music, right? But what would you classify as Texas independence music? Is it Texas country, right? Or is it only songs about Texas becoming an independent nation? Is it songs about Texas and the Republic era, or about the Texas Revolution? You have to define that sort of thing out. There are plenty of collections out there. If you go to any of our organized county meetings, our leadership in those places, they have access to a streaming curated list of music that we have picked specifically for those types of events. We have shared on multiple occasions before a running Spotify playlist of songs that are either inspirational to people that are involved in Texas, or somehow loosely connected. Actually, many years ago, there was a playlist that was created specifically to go along with a project that someone was working on called Texas the Movie. And one of the things they wanted from us was an inspirational playlist of music to potentially include in the movie. And so we actually did that too. We share almost every San Jacinto day. We have a San Jacinto Day Spotify playlist. We have a playlist of Texas Christmas music, right? I mean, so, you have to be a little more specific, but look, I love me some Texas music. I mean, you may or may not be aware, but back at the same time, around the time the TNM was founded, which the TNM was founded like months after, but March of that same year, we launched something called Radio Free Texas. Karen and I did. I mean, that's how we did it. It plays nothing and streams nothing but Texas country music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you definitely hit me in a spot over here that I really dig. But to be able to answer your question, we got to kind of tighten the definition up a little bit. But thank you for that question, Eric. Okay, let's see what we got over here. This is going to be fun. Which one of these do I take? Yeah, let's take one from chat. Okay, how does Texas become an independent nation when there are so many immigrants that would never accept this, especially from India and the Middle East? Houston and Sugar Land is practically India. Look, Shane, here's the bottom line. First off, the premise of your question is faulty, right? To say that immigrants would never accept Texas becoming an independent nation. This goes back to, first thing is, let's go back to the conversation or the answer that I had to give, I guess it was last week or week before, which is, whatever that looks like doesn't affect our belief, at least me personally, and hopefully you and others as well, that independence must be pursued because it's the right thing, right? I don't care who else supports it or who doesn't, right? If it's the right thing, we do it regardless, okay? But that being said, if you look in the Texas book, one of the things you're going to find is sort of a myth bust on this whole thing. You have, and I wish I had the quote right here handy, but there are studies showing that that even recent immigrants, first and second generation, feel more Texan than they do American as a whole. So I think that if you understand what Texan means, if you kind of get the idea that being a Texan and being American are not the same thing, then all of a sudden that idea of a self-identity for Texas, being a bit of a driver and polling much, much higher than anticipated, is kind of a big deal. But at the end of the day, I don't know that this is the correct premise, Shane. What we find is that the demographics that support Texas becoming an independent nation are far more representative of Texas as a whole than really either major political party. So, there's going to be one way to find out, and that is, let's put it to a vote. Let's have a referendum. Let's put it to a vote, and then we'll see how that shakes down. But thank you for your question. All right. And for all of you latecomers, be sure to get your questions in. You can drop them in chat on YouTube, drop them in chat on X, drop them in chat on Rumble, or you can leave them as a comment on the Facebook video. But if you want to chat with everybody else, coming over to YouTube is kind of a really cool idea. Or you can email your questions to coffeetalk@tnm.org. Okay. Okay. Let's take this one. This is a lot, guys. I will give you a tip. When you send a question in for Coffee Talk, right? I don't mean just sort of generically, like you have a big question you really need to unpack from the organization, right? I mean, just something for Coffee Talk. I can read the question with minimal context. If you're sending more than 3 paragraphs with it, you're probably going to get skipped over. because I just can't kill all that time looking for the question. Just get to the question, right? So lots of setup. I don't know. So does TNM have a contingency for this sort of situation, whatever that situation may be, and all of the stuff above it? And the answer to that is, TNM, if we have contingencies, we won't be discussing them on a YouTube live stream. I mean, that kind of is OPSEC, right? I mean, why would we ever do that? So, cannot confirm nor deny the existence of a contingency plan for the things that you set up above. And even if I could, I wouldn't, because that would just be dumb. And I'm not dumb. Okay. So thank you for that question. I think, right? Okay. This is from Andrea. Would this be 7 p.m., not Texas time? I'm talking about El Paso time. Andrea's having a go at me, and I gotta apologize to our people who watch and listen out in El Paso. I'm always referring to the time for things as Texas time, right? And I think it's, I think the folks that are out in El Paso feel a little bit excluded when I do that. And so my apologies, Andrea. I will try to do better, right? I'm just talking about Texas time for the vast majority. But I would suggest that it may be time to bring El Paso back into the fold. We should not have Texas divided by time zones, especially a little piece of us like that. I mean, why would we do that? Why do we allow that? We shouldn't. Let's put us all together. Texas in one time zone. Somebody hashtag, tweet, do whatever. Texas in one time zone. So my apologies, Andrea. I will try to do better in the future. Okay. Let's get back over here. Okay, this one is from X, Eric Riddle. Eric says, does TNM have an official statement on the Democrats breaking quorum? We did not put out an official statement, but there is a podcast episode that is getting ready to drop that will answer 2 specific questions that we got after we did drop the last podcast. If you have not seen this on YouTube, you got to do that. It's called Redistricting Texas, What They Won't Tell You. Instead of dealing with quorum breaks, it deals with the history, kind of how we got here and how this whole redistricting thing is really just the result of a bunch of federal meddling, right? And so 2 questions that I've gotten a lot in response to that, excuse me, is whether or not they can be arrested, right? These are basically like true or false questions, right? Can they be arrested for breaking quorum? And the other one that I answer is, there's been a lot of people asking whether or not the power exists truly to have their seats vacated. And so I deep dive all of that. I take those 2 and answer them and deep dive that. And so we haven't had an official statement on it because it really hasn't been necessary, because at the end of the day, this is not particularly unusual. I mean, what would the statement from the TNM be? I mean, if I were to give a statement right now, it'd be like, can we hurry up and get the Texas independence vote done before they come back, right? Because, I mean, we're talking about a lot of those people that fled really, really hate us. The Gene Woos of the world and people like that, they really hate us. So, if we could go ahead and get that door shut before they got back in, I mean, that'd be kind of beneficial to everybody now, wouldn't it? I mean, a lot of developments on that one. I mean, the Democrats are saying that they won't come back until this special session is over, which, Abbott has already said he's going to go right into another one. And until they see the California redistricting maps that they're going to redistrict to offset the stuff that Texas is doing congressionally. I'm just saying at this point, look, if it's going to be this way, then let's just redistrict, not just Congress. Let's do the Texas House. Let's do the Texas Senate, because if the premise is valid, okay, now I'm not saying that it is, but let's just say for a moment that the premise, the pretext, the rationale for wanting to redistrict mid-census is correct. And let's kind of break that logic down. Number one, there's been population shifts, right, that would be unaccounted for. That's one. Number two, they say that there has been a what was essentially a bad count because the Biden administration authorized the counting of illegal aliens that were not supposed to be counted in the census. And number three, unconstitutional racial gerrymandering is not a thing. They don't allow it. And if you listen to my podcast, you know that they tell us we have to. They tell us we have to do it a certain way. They tell us we can't do it that way. They tell us do this again. So this has been the song and dance for 50 years now, right? So if you accept at face value those three things, the rationale for redistricting the congressional districts, then why were the Texas House and Texas Senate districts not up for discussion? Because they were essentially drawn, those districts were drawn utilizing the same methodology, the same guide rails, right? Now, there are some differences. Here, for congressional districts, you can only have about a 1% population variation. For House districts and Senate districts, you can have up to 3%. I mean, there's some other things along with that, but effectively, all three of those maps were drawn using that same methodology. So why one set and not the other two? Good question, right? So would be interesting conversation to have. But I mean, look, if we're going to just flip over the table and mess up the chessboard, let's just do it, right? Let's just get it done. It's all theater anyway. Thanks for the question, Eric. Okay, let's get over here. Okay, Buddy says, any new good folksy one-liners that you've been wanting to use? Yours are always the best. Buddy, I get called out for them, but I'm going to tell you, I don't pre-write them. I don't rehearse them. I mean, once they're used, they may get recycled, right? But they just kind of fly out of my mouth, and typically at the most inopportune times. And I have been fair to partly lucky with those things over time, in the sense that I've not said anything just too blatantly offensive. But it's just analogies, right? The Chihuahua and the Peach Pit and the other ones. I mean, you guys always give me grief about those. Not grief. I mean, you just kind of like poking me with a stick. Go, hey, say the thing, right? So trust and believe. I guarantee, in the words of Justin Wilson, that one of them will be flying out of my mouth at some point, maybe even tonight. So stay tuned. Who knows? But thank you for that question. Let's see what we got here. Crackpot. Okay. This one is from Chris. Hi, Chris. He says, Daniel, I was on an X live cast last night, and the host was adamant that X was covering for Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. He stated that if you spell their names incorrectly in X posts, your critique is more likely to be seen by others and not suppressed. Is this true of X? Okay. I wasn't going to say anything. Because, unlike the situation that we had with email deliverability a few weeks ago, where we had concrete proof, and then they still called us liars, right? Proof that Gmail was flunking out emails that were intentionally sending our stuff into spam folders. Well, they called us liars. Newsweek did a story about it. And then come to find out, I think it was the Republican National Congressional Committee, whatever it is, the RNCC, some of the big RNC organizations went and complained that the same thing was happening to them. And so, oh yeah, well, it is happening. Well, it was happening all along. Just because it was happening to us, nobody gave a crap, right? But now it was the thing. So yet again, we were proven right that it is happening and that big tech is doing it. And so I will tell you, Chris, that we have been having conversations, and there has been some work going on behind the scenes as we can, to try to get to the bottom of this issue with X. And I can tell you, I'll just go ahead and say it tonight. You guys probably noticed we haven't been posting so much on X as of late. And part of that has been some algorithmic testing, right? We're just trying to see, because, you have all these people that have all these tips, tricks, and tactics. And what we're trying to do is determine, look, have we covered all of our bases? Have we done everything in the optimal way possible on these platforms? Because it's the only way you're going to be able to prove that something is going on specific and targeted to who you are. There has been a lot of discussion between people that have seen the analytics, because we're out searching for, we're looking, we're actively gathering data, but there have been people out there who have experts in the field who have looked at the analytics and say your analytics are not right. There's no way that your post should be getting this small of an engagement. It's not being shown to the right people or enough of the people. And look, it's not just the TNM, it's me too, right? My wife, who has an account, who follows me on X, when I post, she literally has to go search me, find my account, and go find it. So I literally have to tell her when I do it. She's got the worst notification system known to man. That notification system is me when I go, hey, babe, go look at what I just posted on X, right? I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? So I am seeing this complaint from a lot of people in the self-determination space, okay? So it's not just us, it's other self-determination movements. And I believe that, I'm just going to say it, I believe that either there's some leftover nonsense in the X algorithm from when the wokenistas at Twitter were in charge that just hasn't been scrubbed out, or this is intentional. And I will tell you, this is far more insidious than what Facebook did to us when they started, effectively, hitting community standards and pulling down posts that linked directly to texitnow.org, the FAQ website, right? If you don't know that history, go look it up. There was a lawsuit. Facebook relented, on. Just, there's a history, so go look it up. That was kind of in your face, right? It's very in your face. This sort of thing is far more insidious because, they just tweak a little code in the back end, or they flag something here, and you never really know. It's just, they just don't show you. And all of a sudden your engagement drops off and people aren't seeing. And there is a big, I don't want to call it a conspiracy, because I don't think it's that. But I think, no, I know that big tech is not truthful about these things. And I know that from an experience from a client that I cannot share the details, because I'm covered under an NDA with most of my clients. And so I can't tell you any of the details of it, but I just know that they lie about it. Big tech lies about this sort of thing. No shocker there. I think everyone read the Twitter files when they were released, and they saw that government had a hand in big tech censorship. And I think people focused on Biden administration and the lockdowns and the information related to the virus that went around that I can't say still on platforms, or you get deboosted and demonetized and everything else. But you get the point, right? And I think they focused in on the fact that it happened in that instance, but I don't think that they uncovered the entire story. And I will be very clear about this. I made it known publicly when Facebook pulled its shenanigans, and especially after the Twitter files leaked about the government and and not just federal government, but government agencies, including state agencies, were given access to a portal where they could request information being flagged and removed from all the major social media platforms. And I have not peeled off of this at all. My feeling on what I'm about to tell you has not diminished in the least. I looked at, I guess it was Nate. At one point, I know I said to Kara, I said to others, and I said, look, I think if this lawsuit plays all the way out, what we're going to find is that it was not somebody at the federal level that requested the banning of texitnow.org links. And I don't think it was some, purple-haired weirdo in the bowels of Facebook that did it. My suspicion all along is that the order came from a state office or state agency at the state level. And granted, and I will tell you, we never got proof one way or the other, and we will never know now unless some whistleblower comes forward. But that being said, I think it is quite interesting that when we offered to drop the lawsuit with Meta if they did two things. Number one was apologize and promise they would never do it again to us, right? We just wanted an acknowledgement that they did the wrong thing. And number two, tell us who ordered it to happen. Number one, if it'd been by itself, we'd have gotten an apology letter, but it was that second one. They're like, we'll take this to the paint. They did not want to reveal who told them. And so I think subsequent to that, when all the Twitter files and everything came loose, that made me feel almost like it was some government agency. And I still hold fast to the fact I believe it was state level. Now, who that could be, I mean, it could be any cast of characters, but I think it's no coincidence that those bans happened right before an election, right? So super interesting. So to your point, Chris, do I think it's possible? I can't speak to that specifically about Abbott and about Patrick or what those motivations would be or who has asked for it or who it's happening to. I can only talk about my experience and the experience of the TNM and say that given what we have seen, what we have experienced, what we are currently experiencing, and what we are likely to experience in the future, what you're asking about here seems quite reasonable to me. I mean, I know a lot of people out there cry censorship, censorship, censorship. It's, these are, I get it. These are certain platforms. I understand how that works. But at the end of the day, we've seen how they behave about how big tech platforms and government work together, collude together to suppress points of view that they do not like. And when you got big tech in bed with government, then things like this absolutely can and will happen. So I would say, X has been, as I said before, X has been less and less of a platform for us simply because we can't justify the time it takes to spend over there, because when you're doing all the right things and even the people who say they want to see what you have to post can't even see it, then it's like, congratulations, that's what they've done. Now, the only way that you counter that is you flood the algorithm. If literally every one of us that were on there talking about these things were consciously checking and resharing, and you eventually get to a point where you overload the algorithm, you flood the zone, and the algorithm can't suppress without it being very, very obvious. Hopefully you can read between the lines there. Hint, hint. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for that question, Chris. Let's get back over here to chat, see what we got. Hey, welcome to our newest member, Cody Walker. Thank you, Cody. Yeah, good questions tonight. And thank you for becoming a member. member for. It's really, really nice, man. Thank you for that. Okay. Oh, it's not a new member. He is a member. I got it. I understand now. You have been. Well, thank you for being a member, and I thank you for liking the questions. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's get down to it. G-Man says, has Texas announced the use of digital assets? I'm not sure in particular what you're talking about, other than, we have the, well, we talked about this for many weeks as it was happening, where, it's so great. I get to do this again, where Texas launched its own transactional. That's pretty cool, right? Transactional gold, right? That bill passed. So talked about that. So I would suggest going back and looking at some of those previous live streams where we talked about it. Go look at the news on Texas Partisan, where it lays out the timeline for the implementation and everything else. But as far as other digital assets, I just don't know. Texas is going to establish a Bitcoin reserve. I know that. That's what I got for you. So without a little more specifics, I can't really answer your question on that. But hopefully you were talking about the transactional gold, and if that's the case, I got you covered. We did that thing for weeks, so you got plenty of info. Ooh, boy, I got to get moving, shake a leg. All right. Okay. Let's go here. Ralph asks, sorry, it's coffee talk, and there's been more talk than coffee, so I got some catching up to do. Ralph says, Libertarian Party has long supported a vote for Texas independence. I once attended a meeting of the Libertarian Party of Washington County, and they were/are very receptive to the idea. I included in the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Brazos County at that meeting, Jeff Miller, about the Texas First Pledge, and he signed it. Would the TNM consider doing some sort of organized outreach to the Libertarian Party? Actually, Ralph, we have. Libertarian Party, there's always a lot of talk about the Republican Party and kind of the work that's going on there. But a lot of people forget the Libertarian Party of Texas was the first political party in the state to add a plank to their platform calling for a Texas referendum. And, I like to think that kind of lit the fuse under some of the folks in the Republican Party to, it kind of softened it up and opened the doors a little bit. So, look, we got a lot of people that are in the Libertarian Party that are supporters of the TNM. There is a Texas caucus within the Libertarian Party. Steve Rivette, I don't know if you know that name, put that thing together. I've spoken at one of the SLEC meetings. It's been some time back, and I would be open to doing it again. The thing about us not being a political party is that we have the ability and the opportunity to go make the case for independence to essentially everyone, regardless of political affiliation. And it gives us a tremendous degree of freedom in who we're able to work with and talk with and things of that nature. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, we're already doing it to some degree, probably not as organized as it should be, but that really gets down to the thing that every advocacy organization or charity or even small businesses have to contend with, which is they are all short on two things: money and manpower, right? So if we had the manpower, we probably could organize that and make that happen, right? So anyway, thank you for your question, Ralph. Okay, let's get over here to the chat. Okay, here we go. Zane, in the case Texas secedes or withdraws from the union or reasserts our status as an independent nation, right? I'm ad-libbing, but I'm making sure we're all clear. How would our state military be reorganized? In my discussions with others, I don't have a great answer to give others. Okay, that's really a good one. So I think if you're having a conversation with someone about how Texas military would be established or reorganized, I think it's important to establish a lot of baselines. Okay. Because you would be surprised at how many people just don't understand what the status quo is with Texas having its own military. Some people, you tell them, hey, you realize Texas has its own military, right? And or we have this thing called the Texas Military Department. And they think, oh, what is that? The liaison to the military? But no. You don't understand. The Texas Military Department. It is the Texas military. The governor is the commander in chief. It's a 3-branch military. I mean, a lot of people don't even understand that, and so it's important to establish that knowledge for people before you start having this conversation about, okay, well, how would we organize? How would we take that and turn that into a military for a self-governing independent nation? And what you will find is, and specifically when you talk to people that are, ex-military that are here in Texas that advise us frequently, what you're going to find is that the Texas Military Department becomes the foundation for building a full-blown national defense for Texas. Again, most people don't realize that it exists, and that's an important thing, right? So I think once you get that out of the way, and then you understand, okay, well, look, if I've got a foundation to build off of, then I can, now with a foundation, I mean, look, I'll just quote Napoleon Bonaparte here: to build an army, you have to start with a competent corps of officers. That's what he says. Well, we have more than that. We literally have command structure and equipment and camps and bases, and we have all these things. Is it a full-blown military? I mean, define what a full-blown military is. Is it the optimal that we would want, in the future? No, it's not there. But we understand there's a gap, but that gap is not as wide as if, we were starting out and saying, well, we don't have a military, but we got 3 Boy Scout troops, right? I mean, that's a different scenario, right? So the bottom line is we at least have something to start with and then build on top of it. What we don't have, we build or we acquire, much like other militaries around the world do. So, it becomes, there's some aspects of this that deal with the negotiation phase of Texas, where we've got to deal with disposition of military bases and military equipment, and the status of Texas troops that are actually on active duty in the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all that. What does that look like? Do they send them home and then we just integrate them into the Texas military? How does that work, right? So there are some issues that are dealt with in the negotiation phase, but at the end of the day, regardless of that, we still have an existing base to begin. And that is super important. And I got to tell you, not every state can say that. All these different states have National Guard, but almost none of them have what we have here, which is effectively our own 3-branch military, where the governor is the commander in chief. And one of those branches cannot be federalized, right? So this is an amazing situation for us to be in. It's also one of the reasons that the TNM has advocated for years that all of the spending that's going to the Texas Military Department go not to the National Guard, but be shifted over to the State Guard that cannot be federalized, and have the State Guard be fully militarized, instead of just what is effectively a aid and relief force. I won't call them a peacekeeping force, but to fully militarize that branch. It's been one of the biggest talking points for us, a big policy goal for us. And this last session, State Rep Andy Hopper filed a bill that was just, I think, was putting us right on the path to making that happen. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, Zane, thank you for your question. Okay, boy, I gotta manage my time here. I gotta manage the clock. Let's see where we're at. I think I've answered this one before, right, Eric? You said, when Texas becomes an independent nation, do you have anyone in mind for diplomatic posts to specific countries? I think we've answered that one before. I think you've actually asked it a couple of different times. I don't have anyone in mind for diplomatic posts. Ultimately, I would envision, I would hope that our international engagement team that really needs some TLC from people that are minded this way, by the way, hint, hint, for people to go volunteer for that. But I would hope that our international engagement team could be a recruitment bed for people to do international diplomacy. I think our international engagement folks, were they to come in and start getting some experience in dealing with independence movements from other places, I think that's a really good starting foundation. But look, you're going to have people that are in the federal civil service, particularly the diplomatic corps, that are Texans, that are going to come home and go, "This is my expertise," and I'm down with the Texas independence cause, and now the Texas is an independent nation. I want to keep doing what I was doing, but I want to do it for my home. Right? That's gonna happen. You see it happen all the time around the world. We've seen it happen. Oh, I don't know exactly, about 140 times in the last 75 years. So that's how it goes. But thank you for your question, Eric. And that question came from Facebook. See, there are people over there on Facebook. Okay. Wow. All right, let's get down to it. We're getting close. All right, here's a follow-up from somebody on the digital asset acquisition. Silent says, speaking of digital asset acquisition, what is T&M's stance on the Texas Bitcoin Strategic Reserve or crypto stockpile? I'm not opposed to it. Look, if Texas is going to be a player in the world, it's going to have its own stockpiles of things that have value. And at this time, crypto is one of those, Bitcoin specifically. And so do I think it's wise? Absolutely. But I also think it's wise for when Texas established its gold depository, right? A stockpile for precious metals. I think Texas should have its own strategic oil reserve. I mean, there's anything you would think of that a self-governing independent nation state would want to have a reserve of. I think Texas should have it. I think we should be doing the same thing with food and, with water and aqua. I mean, there's just all of those things that you would think of. I think it's smart for Texas to do that. It's prudent for any nation state to accumulate excess for lean times. That's why we have what here in Texas is called an economic stabilization fund or the rainy day fund, so that when we budget and the biennial estimates are not met for the income, that if necessary and there's a gap, we can go into the RDF, the economic, or the ESF, the Economic Stabilization Fund, and make up the shortfall. But we don't have that problem. ESF is maxed out, so I am all in favor. And I have made mention of this on occasion. I am all in favor of Texas having its own sovereign wealth fund. There is a document that is being worked on right now to turn it into a full-blown policy document that essentially presents one. Here's how Texas should implement a sovereign wealth fund. And at the end of, I think it's the 50 or 60-year run, Texans don't have to pay taxes ever on anything, right? Let other people pay for that. Because the sovereign wealth fund produces enough for the government to operate, and that is the government of a self-governing independent nation. So looking forward to being able to release that at some time in the near future. So thank you for your question, Silent. Really nice. Okay, let me check, see if we got an email one over here. And this, if there is nothing else, will be our last question for tonight. Yeah, I don't know who's over there talking about fixing the federal government, but I will say, as I peeked over at chat, it made me giggle just a little bit. Okay, last one. Roosevelt Media News. I have not seen that name in a while. Welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talks. Is maybe dumb question, but any movement on a vote on Texas? Hey, we are effectively in between regular sessions, so your next bite at the apple is going to be the next legislative session, unless you have groundswell of people that call up and push Greg Abbott to do that, or some external circumstance that facilitates that. And so everybody's focus, if you want a vote on Texas, your focus right now is getting candidates that are running for office at the state level, right, or local level, doesn't matter, candidates that are running, get them to sign the Texas First Pledge, like Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller has done, or 10 of the House reps, or candidate for comptroller Don Huffines, or the list goes on and on and on. Get them to sign. If you're out there, as these guys are campaigning right now, and you have somebody running for state rep, whether an incumbent or a challenger, and say, do you support? Get them on the record, right? Get them on video. Ask them the question, do you support letting Texans vote on whether or not to reassert our status as an independent nation? Yes or no. Pound it, pound it, pound it till it's all they stinking hear on the campaign trail, and you will get people that will help deliver a Texas vote to the people. But, we saw with this leadership dysfunction this last session, I mean, it's not enough. We need to double or triple the presence of Texas First candidates or Texas First electeds at least on the House side. And we need to get a nice contingent. And I got to tell you, we need a governor and a lieutenant governor that will unabashedly and unashamedly sign the Texas First Pledge and support letting Texans vote on this issue. Whether they think it's a winning issue or a losing issue is irrelevant to the fact that they should never be opposed to allowing us to vote on this issue, ever. And so, any movement on it, that's going to be entirely contingent upon the people, right? It's campaign season right now. Trust and believe. I just saw the invitation for the Dustin Burrows fundraiser up in Lubbock that is going to be where he's going to be joined by Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. So it's in full swing. There are candidates running right now, Texas First Pledge signers that are running right now. And it's, it's just that they're there and they need support. And ones that have not signed need to be pushed to sign and need to be put on the record to sign. And if they don't sign, tell them they don't get your vote. That is how you advance the vote for Texas. Look, we can put these people out there. We can go in and we can talk to them. We can do everything else. But if they're not getting that groundswell of pressure from people like you, I mean, they expect to hear from me. But if they're not hearing it from you, then it's just, it's just another, pressure group, some kind of nonsense. So that's the answer. That is exactly where we are at right now. And I would suggest that it's time. I mean, just let it loose. Let it all hang out. Because, some people may feel like they're safe and things are copacetic and cool, but that is not the case. The clock is ticking, friends. It's ticking. Do you hear it? Do you hear it? That's the countdown clock. Do you want to do this thing the right way, or do you want it to be a byproduct of a collapse? I don't want DC down here on our streets imposing martial law or doing crazy things like that. I don't want to wait until the dollar collapses. I don't want to wait. I want Texas to leave out with strength, not from behind the starting line. So that means we have to be responsible people and take this effort into our own hands and be conscious and deliberate in the way that we make Texas independence a reality. That's what it takes. That's the grown folks' way of doing things, and that's what we have to do. Otherwise, you're just waiting around for the crap to collapse around you and then, rebuild on the ashes. Well, who wants that? What smart, wise person would say that is the most prudent course of action? Not a one. I'll give you a hint. Okay. All right. Rock and roll. Well, let's do that. Thank you so much. Hey, and thank you for your $5 super chat. And we will continue to keep up the hard work and the passion. Look, I don't ever lose my passion for this. I lose my patience more than my passion, right? But I'll never lose passion. And we've got, guys, we got a good team. Good group of folks over here that are working every single day to get you a vote on Texas independence and to win it, to I would say impress the values and the principles and the mission of Texas nationalism into the population, to just infuse that spark, that fire back in the people of Texas, so that we can rise up to meet the legacy that was passed down to us from the people that protected the Alamo unto death or marched to victory across the plains of San Jacinto. That is what we're trying to do. Revive and reinvigorate the Texan spirit. One that's one of independence and not subservience. I mean, I hate to see people cosplay. I am so Texan, but boy, I got to tell you what, the taste of a federal boot is just too much for them to pass up. It just drives me nuts. We don't need any more Texan cosplayers. We need people out there in the trenches fighting to make this happen. So thank you for your super chat, sir, or ma'am. I do not know, because that is like a business name handle. So, and look at this, 2 back-to-back super chats to wrap us up tonight from Chris Powell. One for $49.99. Thank you, sir. And yet another one for $19.99. I must have said something that really fired him up. But Chris, thank you so much for that. Week in, week out, you always helping out with super chats, and that helps keep this thing moving along. Helps us make Texas independence a reality, and we are very appreciative of that. So thank you for that, Chris. Okay, friends. Well, that is going to be a wrap for tonight. Just a quick reminder, a big thank you to our YouTube channel members. They are, in addition to the Super Chats, channel members definitely help keep things on level and help us to produce content. And we got some bangers, man. You guys have already seen some. I got to tell you, that last podcast we did, people are absolutely eating that thing up. So be sure you check that out. But a big thank you to our YouTube channel members. Also, a reminder, if you have not gotten your account on TNM Social, head over there and do that. Go to tnm.social right now, or you can open up your phone, go to the App Store on Apple or Google Play, search for TNM Social, and download the app. And if you don't have an account already, don't worry. You can register an account right through the app, or you can go to the website and sign up. But it is the place. I mean, we just had this whole conversation about big tech censorship. It's exactly why TNM Social exists, so people like us can get together and organize and talk about Texas independence without being gate kept by the powers that be. Additionally, look, if you are not a registered supporter of the TNM, head over and do that now. Go to tnm.me/vote. Even if you don't want to get on TNM Social or do any of the other stuff, be sure to head over to tnm.me/vote. Register your support today. And of course, go check out all the fine merchandise at the Texian store. Go to texianstore.com. That's where I got this coffee mug that I'm holding right here. Yeah, I got it from the Texian store. It's a Texian partisan coffee mug, right? Which is the official news site of the Texas Nationalist movement. Head over to texianpartisan.com. Be sure you are on the email list over there, where we're sending out, as we get news, we send it out. And we got lots of great content over there and looking to expand more. And my understanding is the Partisan is looking for people to write articles. So if you are a TNMer, a Texiteer, and you would like to see, you want to do some citizen journalism or, maybe something like that, then head over to TexianPartisan.com, reach out, let them know that you are interested, and we'll go from there. All right, friends. I do believe that, as I said, that is a wrap, right? So, look, I want to thank you all so much for being here week in and week out. It's incredible to be able to carve this time out and be here together with you each week, answer these questions, and watch you guys visit. I mean, honestly, I could just sit back and watch you guys chat amongst each other, and I'd be cool with that. But it's important for us to get together on a regular basis to build that community and to, just kind of share this Texas independence experience with one another. So before I end, thank you. And a programming note, the last week of this month, I will not be here. We will not have a coffee talk the last week of this month because I will be traveling it's going to be fun. Maybe I'll talk about it. Maybe I won't, but I will not be here. I will be driving a lot and screaming my lungs out. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun for me. something y'all probably don't want to know. But that being said, I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with each time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.